When that bizarre game descended on humanity, we were given a final ultimatum. Anyone with less than 200,000 yuan in savings would be entered into a random monthly death lottery, and 100,000 people would have their heads blown apart. The moment that news came out, countless people went insane trying to borrow money and take out loans. Meanwhile, rich people were treated like emperors. But then one day, the rules suddenly flipped. At first, I thought the whole thing was fake. Then 1 month later, news started breaking all over the world. People were really having their heads explode in the middle of the street without warning. According to official statistics, the number of victims was exactly 100,000, and every single one of them had less than 200,000 yuan in savings. That was when the whole world descended into chaos. Even then, some people still refused to believe it. They said it had to be a prank, that someone was hiding behind the scenes and manipulating the world, and that these so-called head explosions were just some twisted game made for entertainment. Governments around the world investigated the cause, but every result came back the same. The victims' brains had suddenly expanded and ruptured from within. Hearing that every country was saying the same thing filled me with fear. In the end, just like many of my coworkers, I pushed open my boss's office door. President Kui Bapi jumped in fright at the sound of the door opening. Don't even think about asking for your salary in advance, and I'm not lending you money either. Get out. The moment I heard that, I hid the killing intent in my eyes and thought to myself, if I die, I'm taking him with me. After leaving his office, I opened a second-hand housing app and checked the listing for my apartment. Still no buyers. A house that used to be worth 2 million yuan was now listed for 200,000, and nobody even asked about it. Then I went to the bank and checked several branches. Every place was packed to the brim. The lines were full of people trying to ask for loans. Just a few months ago, interest rates had been dirt cheap. Now they had multiplied tenfold, and only premium customers could even get approved. Ordinary people had no chance. The banks were all thinking the same thing. When the repayment date came, would these people really be willing to use up their savings to pay back the loan? After all, once this supernatural nightmare arrived, savings were the only thing keeping you alive. There was less than a month left until the next head explosion day. I picked a branch with fewer people and took a number to wait in line. By the time the sun had set, more than half the people still hadn't been seen. One middle-aged man finally snapped, "I've been waiting all damn day. Can't you move any faster?" The security guards immediately surrounded him. "Sir, please leave. Don't interfere with other customers handling their business." Before he could even speak again, they dragged him straight out. After seeing that, nobody else in the bank dared make a sound. It wasn't until after midnight that it was finally my turn. The moment I handed over my ID card, the young woman at the loan counter tossed it right back at me. "Sorry, sir. Even if you mortgage your property, the most we can lend you is 50,000 yuan. 1 month from now, you'll need to repay 100,000. If that works for you, I can process it immediately." The second I heard that, I agreed on the spot. At that point, staying alive mattered more than anything. So I spent the entire night running between several different banks. In the end, all the loans I got combined still didn't even total 100,000 yuan. The moment I got home, I washed my face and went straight to work because the company had just introduced a new rule. If you were late even once, they would dock an entire month's salary. The rule was brutally inhuman, but even so, nobody wanted to quit. After all, most of the office wage slaves didn't have 200,000 in savings. That morning, I opened WeChat to get ready for work, and the first thing I saw was another notice from Kui Bapi in the group chat. Starting immediately, every employee had to report their work performance to him before payday, and anyone who failed his evaluation would have their performance bonus suspended for the month. The second that message went out, not a single person dared resist. Everyone started scrambling to report to him first. By evening, nearly every male employee had been wiped out. Their salary for the month was suspended, and only a few younger female employees passed the evaluation. When I got home that night, I found that my wife still wasn't back yet. I was just about to calm myself down by reading that book, The Power of the Subconscious, when I noticed my old class group chat had exploded with messages. I scrolled up like a madman and discovered that one of my classmates, Xu Qiang, a guy who had struck it rich overnight from demolition compensation, had sent a message saying, "Anyone whose savings are under 200,000, reply in order. I'll help if I can. I'll add you myself." Dozens of people had already replied, so I added my name too. Even though we had lost contact, Xu Qiang used to be one of my best friends in school. But by late night, I still hadn't received a friend request from him. I even tried adding him several times myself, but nothing happened. Just before dawn, the group chat suddenly started filling with angry messages and curses. After reading them, I let out a cold laugh. Honestly, people would have had better luck just going out and begging for food. Back in school, Xu Qiang had been mocked endlessly because he was fat. I was the only one willing to help him and be his friend. When I saw him skipping lunch because he didn't want to spend money, I even used to bring him food. Then, out of nowhere, Xu Qiang finally posted in the group, Xu Qiang, I remember you replied too. Back then, you treated me like some beggar and pitied me by giving me the snacks you didn't want to eat. I've remembered that ever since. If you want money now, fine. Record a video of yourself kneeling on the ground and eating dog food, post it in this group, and maybe I'll consider helping you out. I replied coldly, Wang Qianhu, just hope the day never comes when you have to beg me. Then I quickly searched through my email, found an old video of someone dumping urine on Wang Qianhu while he cried and begged me for help back in school, and sent it straight into the group. Wang Qianhu, maybe you should take a look at how you begged me back then. A little while later, the group chat completely exploded. All the male classmates Wang Qianhu had been playing with started mocking him with everything they had. He sent several 60-second voice messages, and just from the previews, I could tell I had hit one of his deepest scars. But I didn't listen to any of them, because I was on my way to the company to deal with Cui Bapi one more time. The moment I walked into his office, I splashed the hot coffee I had prepared in advance right onto his face. Then I flipped his desk over. Cui Bapi instantly flew into a rage. Xu Qiang, you're fired! Tomorrow is head explosion day. Go wait for death. I stared at him coldly and said, I might die anyway. If I take you down first, that's still a win. Then I walked toward him step by step, grabbed a chair nearby, and raised it over my head. Cui Bapi screamed, and a warm stream ran down his legs. Seeing that, I burst out laughing and walked out. When I got home, my wife Wang Qian rushed up to me. I got the loan, a full 50,000 yuan. I hugged her happily. I'm still short 60,000 on my side, and you're still short 100,000 on yours. In a bit, let's go to my uncle's house. He just sold his home to some big boss, so he should still have some money left. He'll definitely help us. He treated me the best when I was little. As I said that, I forced out a strained smile. I got fired. Wang Tian's expression stiffened for a moment. Then she reached up and touched my face. So what if you got fired? That trash boss of yours is going to get what's coming to him sooner or later. That night, I bought a box of fruit and milk and knocked on my uncle's door. From inside, I heard my aunt's voice. Those two debt collectors are here again. If you dare open that door, I'm divorcing you. Your own nephew still hasn't scraped together enough money, so what right do you have to help these two? Then I heard the sound of things being smashed. Hearing that, Wang Qian and I quietly turned around and left. When we got back home, we held each other and waited for that moment to come. Then I found an excuse to go to the bathroom. Looking at the 140,000 yuan in my account, I didn't hesitate. I transferred it all to Wang Qian. At the exact same time, I got a text alert from the bank. Another 100,000 yuan had just been deposited into my account. The next moment, Wang Qian shoved open the bathroom door. She was holding her phone, tears streaming down her face. The second I saw her, I roared, "What are you doing? If you die, then I die with you." In the final minute, I snatched her phone away and transferred all the money back to her. She desperately tried to stop me, but she wasn't stronger than I was. Then midnight struck. All across the apartment complex, screams and sobbing erupted one after another. In the middle of all that noise, Wang Qian and I looked at each other and smiled like idiots. We were absurdly happy. Then suddenly there was a thunderous explosion outside. I had no idea where it came from, but the shockwave rattled my bookshelf so hard that books started falling off, including The Power of the Subconscious. And right at that moment, that eerie voice descended again. The rules are reversed. 1 month from now, 10,000 people with assets around 200,000 will be randomly selected for head explosion. Remember, assets include savings, financial products, property, shares, company dividends, and all similar holdings. Wang Qian and I froze for a few seconds. Then she suddenly screamed in delight. "We're not going to die. We're not going to die anymore. I have 240,000 in my account. I'll give you half and then both of us will be safe. It doesn't matter if we don't earn anything after that. We still owe hundreds of thousands in loans, so our net assets are negative anyway." Then something hit me like lightning. "Quick, report all the bank cards as lost. We can't let anyone transfer money into them." After the rules reversed, the streets erupted in celebration. But the thing I feared most didn't happen immediately. How could rich people possibly be willing to hand over their money to others so easily? Instead, they started trying every possible way to move their assets around, shifting them into accounts they still controlled. Cui Bapi, for example, transferred all his money into his parents' names. In his mind, they already had more than 200,000 anyway, so what did a little more matter? They were doomed either way, right? Those people still wanted to gamble. They were betting that the supernatural force wouldn't dare kill the rich. Because of that, the vehicle and real estate transfer offices were also packed. Meanwhile, people like me, whose debts were bigger than our savings, were living the easiest lives of all. When there were only a few days left until the next head explosion day, that eerie voice rang out once more. Cheating has been detected too frequently. If anyone transfers assets into the name of a blood relative or into a company account, it will be considered cheating. The original total assets will still be recorded according to their original state. The moment those words ended, Kui Bapi, who had been calmly drinking tea, dropped his cup on the spot. My money belongs to me. Why should it count for someone else? But when head explosion day arrived, the business partner drinking tea with him had his head blown apart right in front of him. Kui Bapi was so terrified he practically pissed himself. He immediately pulled out his phone, opened his mobile banking, and brought up the bank details of his employees. Who do I transfer it to? Who? I still have to get the money back later. Right, Xu Qiang, he came to me to borrow money so many times. I have office surveillance footage. I'll just say I lent it to him and collect it after this ghost nightmare is over. If he refuses, I'll sue him in court. He found the account where my salary used to be deposited and transferred several extra million yuan into it with the note, loan. After pressing the transfer button, a vicious smile of triumph spread across his face. Then the next second, he froze. Ding. Transfer failed. How is that possible? How can his salary card not accept money? He furiously called me. Xu Qiang! I agreed to lend you money. Why can't your card receive it? I replied with a cold laugh. Kui Bapi, did you eat rat poison or something? At a time like this, who the hell still wants money? Even if you knelt down and begged me, I still wouldn't take it. Then I hung up. Kui Bapi smashed everything in his office that could be smashed. Then he sent out a notice in the work group. I am personally offering all employees interest-free loans. Don't even think about refusing. Everyone immediately reply with the amount you need. This supernatural mess will end eventually, but you still have to eat. Anyone who doesn't respond will be fired tomorrow. After sending that, he sneered. You think I've got no way to deal with you people? Very quickly, employees started replying. 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. One by one, he loaned out all of his assets until he was left with only 190,000 yuan. But then, just a few days before the next head explosion day, that eerie voice rang out again. Humans truly are creatures who want everything at once. Any money lent to others will still be counted as the lender's own accounts receivable, and therefore as their personal assets. Any fake transfer of real estate will be considered cheating and punished with immediate head explosion. What? Kui Bapi went completely numb. So all the money I worked so hard to earn is just gone? I don't believe it. That money is mine. Then the next head explosion day arrived. 10,000 people died, and among them were several of Kui Bapi's business partners who had done the exact same thing, loaning their money to employees. They all got their heads blown apart anyway. When Kui Bapi found out, he collapsed back into his chair. Then, one after another, he started receiving repayment notifications. Every single employee had returned the money he loaned out. You bunch of ungrateful bastards! I worked so hard to pay your salaries, and this is how you repay me? He screamed and cursed at his employees in the office, but no one paid him any attention. In the end, the nonstop global news of more head explosions completely broke him. Trembling, he called the finance department. Issue company bonuses from my personal account. But after he announced it, the celebration he imagined never came. The employees just stared at him with blank faces. Watching the money in his account drop at high speed made him feel even worse than swallowing a dead fly whole. He clutched his chest and called emergency services. After the full round of treatment, even the 190,000 yuan he had kept was gone too. When I heard the news, I felt almost nothing. I had a strange sense that Kui Bapi's ending had been decided from the start, because the night before, I had just read a line from that book. No matter what we plant in our subconscious, as long as the thought is deep enough, one day it will become reality. During that period, prices everywhere kept falling. Merchants were practically begging people to take their goods. Housing prices especially were collapsing so badly that countless homeowners were bleeding inside, but they still didn't dare list high prices, and they couldn't fake transactions either. If they wanted to sell, they had to sell for real. Wang Tian and I were still carrying hundreds of thousands in mortgage debt, but all our other living costs had dropped so low they were almost negligible. Even though our house was nearly worthless now, that massive debt actually made me feel safe. At least I didn't have to worry about my head exploding tomorrow. Then, just before the next head explosion day, my aunt called me. Xu Qiang, how about this? Your uncle and I can sell this house to you first, all right? You only need to pay 10,000 yuan for now. Once we get past the end of the month, it'll be fine. I let out a cold laugh. A fake house sale? You're trying to get us killed. The tone on the other end of the phone immediately turned dark. We're family. What's wrong with helping each other? Besides, it's not like those supernatural things will definitely notice. Don't forget your uncle treated you the best when you were little. Oh, so now this huge house is suddenly supposed to go under my name? And what about the rest? Wang Tian and I still have a mortgage, remember? Perfect. Your cousin's savings are over the limit, so let him store the money with you too for now. Each person only needs to stay under 200,000. Once this whole supernatural mess is over, you two can just buy 2 of his worn old shirts. One shirt for 200,000, and that settles it. I could practically hear the abacus beads slapping me in the face. Keeping my voice low, I said, "Aren't you afraid the supernatural force can hear you?" My aunt instantly went hysterical. "You ungrateful little bastard! If it weren't for your uncle, would you even still be alive?" I chuckled. "Exactly. The one who was good to me was my uncle. What does that have to do with you?" The moment she heard that, she shouted to someone beside her, "Useless thing! You talk to him!" Then the call was cut off. When the next head explosion day arrived, my aunt died. She had fake sold the house to her own family, and it was judged as cheating. Her head exploded, and she even dragged her family down with her. I didn't feel even the slightest ripple inside. She had brought that on herself. Wang Tian broke out in a cold sweat after hearing it. She was relieved I had rejected the idea so firmly because otherwise the ones dragged into it would have been us. Right then, that nouveau riche classmate of mine, Wang Qianhu, suddenly sent me a friend request. I rejected it 5 times in a row without even hesitating. Then he posted in the group chat, "Everyone who still has room left. Help! Help me!" Now the gap between a person's current assets and the 200,000 line had been given a name by the media. Life quota. The rich didn't want to just hand their money away for free, so they started spending like maniacs. But businesses weren't stupid either. Prices had already fallen through the floor. Even 5-star hotels were selling bowls of food for 5 yuan. More shops weren't even open at all than the ones still operating. Those rich people had money but nowhere to spend it, so they could only go looking for so-called poor people who still had some life quota left. At that time, I was getting endless phone calls every day from people begging me to accept a little money, promising that later I could return it based on my conscience. But why would I gamble with my life? The closer you got to 200,000, the closer you got to death. No one paid attention to Wang Qianhu's cries for help either, so he started cursing everyone out in the group chat. Then, on the night of head explosion day, I heard someone knocking on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw that it was Wang Qianhu. "Xu Qiang, your good brother is here. Why aren't you opening the door? Back in school, you were the only one who ever helped me. Did you forget?" I was instantly speechless. Of all times, he had to show up now, right before head explosion day. Did he really think I was stupid? He kept banging on the door. "Brother Qiang, just help me this once, okay? I'll give you all my assets. And if anything happens to you, I swear I'll take care of sister-in-law for you. If I break that promise, may I not be human." I almost laughed from sheer anger. So that was the plan. I die in his place, he takes my wife, and then takes back all the assets he gave me. That abacus was clicking even louder than my aunt's. I laughed from behind the door. "Idiot! I'm going to stand right here behind this peephole and watch to see whether your head explodes." Then I opened the door and stared at him with a vicious expression. His legs gave out, and he dropped straight to his knees. "Save me, Xu Qiang! There's only 1 minute left until head explosion day. Save me this once! As long as you don't die, I'll definitely repay you. Get lost." I kicked him over with one foot. A flash of viciousness appeared in the corner of his eye. "Xu Qiang, if you're going to ignore brotherhood, then don't blame me for being ruthless." Before he even finished speaking, I kicked the suitcase behind him straight down the stairs. What are you doing?" Wang Qianhu struggled and waddled downstairs, dragging all that fat with him. It took everything he had to haul the suitcase back up. Then he slammed it down in front of my door and turned to run. "Xu Qiang, it's yours now. Only 10 seconds left. If you don't want it, I definitely don't want it either. Dear supernatural daddies," Xu Qiang accepted it. "So don't come after me." Before he could finish, I kicked the suitcase down the stairs again. "You think I don't know that trick?" I sneered. "Do you even use the internet?" By then, people online had already put together entire guides on how to dump assets quickly. His little move, gifting everything away right at the critical moment, had already killed plenty of poor people. So I had prepared for it. The moment he turned to run, I had already sent that suitcase flying down the stairs. I watched as Wang Qianhu crawled back up the staircase hugging the suitcase. "Brother Qiang, hurry up and help me, just help me." Before he could finish, Wang Qianhu's head exploded. A whole suitcase of gold bars scattered all over the floor. The funeral home came and took his body away, but the gold bars stayed right there on the ground, untouched. And just like that, 1 year passed. By the end of that year, the number of people having their heads blown apart had finally dropped below 10,000. That meant there were no longer any people left with assets above 200,000. Over the course of that year, I noticed something important. The people who had bought houses for 10,000 yuan hadn't been targeted at all because those houses were genuinely only worth 10,000 now. So I bought 3 at rock-bottom prices. I had a feeling the game was going to reverse again very soon. And right then, that grand, eerie voice resounded once more. "The bizarre game is paused. All those whose heads exploded will be revived on the spot." It was only a little over 10 words, but the whole world went insane again. The homeowners who had sold houses for 10,000 yuan lost their minds. The rich people who had practically given away their fortune for nothing lost their minds too. Countless people who had lost their homes roared in anger. The sales made during the bazaar game don't count. Give me my house back. The man who had sold me those 3 houses was Li Hao, a minor shareholder in a publicly listed company, the kind of upper-class man who had already achieved financial freedom. In just 1 year, he had gone from the top back to square one. He called me directly. About those 3 houses from before, I hope you'll obediently return them. I can give you 60,000 yuan as compensation. People like you probably can't even save 30,000 in a year, right? I let out a mocking laugh. Why don't you go cool off somewhere else? Seeing that I wasn't playing along, Li Hao immediately threatened me. I'm warning you. My connections are beyond what someone like you can imagine. I can destroy your livelihood. Believe that. I chuckled. I don't have a job. Then I added, besides, the bazaar game is paused now. The prices of those 3 houses have already shot up. I'm planning to rent them out soon. I'll never have to work again. Li Hao completely lost it. He spat out, just wait, and hung up. The moment the call ended, someone started pounding on my front door. I looked through the peephole and nearly froze. It was Wang Qianhu, the same guy whose head had exploded in the hallway. He had really come back to life. He was hammering on the door like a man possessed. Come out! Just because you wouldn't help me, I died once. Now I'm back, and this time I'm definitely going to smash your head. I let him keep pounding. Wang Tian was so scared she tried calling the police, but no matter what, the call wouldn't go through. Don't bother, I said. All the people whose heads exploded are alive again now. The police can't handle this many cases. Wang Qianhu kept hitting the door harder and harder, and the things he shouted got nastier and nastier. I let out a cold laugh toward the door. Wang Qianhu, want to play a game? I kept talking no matter how much he cursed outside. The rules are simple. For every dirty word you say, 500 grams of biological tissue will be removed from your body. So try to keep that mouth clean, okay? Outside the door, Wang Qianhu kept cursing anyway. The moment he finished one sentence, he suddenly let out a horrible scream. Ah, my foot! Where did my foot go? Was that you? I looked out through the peephole. Wang Qianhu was rolling on the ground in agony, screaming and cursing nonstop. Don't worry, I said calmly. A decent chunk of the biological tissue on your body was built from the food I used to bring you in school. I'm just taking back what's mine. After that, Wang Qianhu finally started begging for mercy. I laughed darkly. Want to play one more game? Every sincere sentence of repentance you speak will restore 500 grams of biological tissue. Wang Qianhu agreed immediately. I'm sorry, Brother Qiang. I shouldn't have repaid kindness with betrayal. I shouldn't have tried to drag you down with me. I shouldn't have humiliated you after I got rich. With each sentence of repentance, his body grew back piece by piece, but by then he already looked like some giant diseased toad. Then, once his voice finally gave out, his face turned dark purple, and he rolled down the stairs. After that, he stopped moving. It took the ambulance a full hour to arrive and take away his corpse. Even the doctors thought he was some kind of supernatural oddity. Wang Tian's little face had gone completely pale. I smiled and comforted her. Don't worry, no one will ever be able to hurt us again. Right then, my phone rang again. When I saw it was my aunt calling, I immediately guessed that she had revived too. You little bastard, she screamed the moment I picked up. I asked you for one tiny favor and you refused. I died for nothing because of you, and I'm not asking for much either. I heard from your uncle that you bought 3 houses for 30,000 yuan. That idea must have come from me in the first place, right? You only need to transfer 2 of them to me. When she heard I wasn't saying anything, she raised her voice. You don't want to cooperate? Fine. Just wait. I'll go make a scene at your company and let your boss see what a disloyal, unfilial piece of trash you are. I sneered. My boss is still unconscious in the hospital. So what if he's unconscious? If I make enough trouble that you lose your job, let's see what you'll eat or wear after that. I actually laughed. This is getting interesting. One after another, all of you keep coming to threaten me. I already quit my job. My aunt went silent for a second. What? Then I'll go make trouble at Wang Qian's company. Her boss got his head blown apart and the company shut down. The second I said that, my aunt actually laughed in satisfaction. So neither of you has a job now. Don't come begging me later. If you won't give me those houses, then I absolutely won't help you. I cut her off on the spot. Actually, we've got 3 houses bringing in rent now. Auntie, how about we play a game? Every time you say a curse word, your son and your husband each slap you once. How does that sound? She clearly thought I had gone crazy. Xu Qiang, you mother. Before she could finish, 2 crisp slaps rang out through the phone. Then I heard my uncle and cousin yelling, Why are you hitting me? That little bastard was just talking nonsense. Are you 2 insane too? I just couldn't help slapping you. Yeah, it's weird, honey. I seriously couldn't control it. It feels like some supernatural thing is messing with us. Hearing the sounds of them fighting on the other side made me ridiculously happy. And right then, another idea came to me. Auntie, let's play one more game. If you ever mention wanting my houses again, you'll be locked inside a 100 square meter house 100 meters underground. My voice was drowned out by the chaos of the fight. Then, after the struggle finally died down, I heard heavy breathing on the other end before she grabbed the phone again. Xu Qiang, tomorrow you'd better transfer those houses to me, or else... Before she could finish, the line suddenly went silent. Then my uncle and cousin, as if they had lost the previous few minutes of memory, only discussed it twice among themselves before going back to whatever they had been doing. No one noticed the phone still lying on the ground with the call connected. Meanwhile, I cheerfully turned on the TV. On the screen, it was showing my aunt inside a pitch-black room. She was screaming in terror, but it was useless. 100 meters underground, there was no light and no sound at all. Then my voice echoed through the darkness. Auntie, this house belongs entirely to you. No one will ever fight you for it. You don't have to pay property management fees. There's no light pollution, and it's nice and quiet. No one will disturb you for 100 years. My aunt was terrified out of her mind, but she still screamed curses at me. Xu Qiang, where did you send me? Let me out right now. Then she could just obediently accept her punishment. There wasn't much air down there anyway. She had better use it sparingly if she wanted to live a few more hours. After saying that, I turned off the TV and let her reflect properly in her underground house 100 meters below the surface. Without my aunt around, my uncle and cousin would finally get some peace and quiet. After that, I took a taxi to the hospital to visit Cui Bapi. He had basically recovered after being saved, and when I arrived, he was flirting with a young nurse. The second he saw me, his eyes filled with resentment. Xu Qiang, you've got some nerve showing up here. The reason I ended up like this is all because of you. Why did you freeze that bank card? Then his eyes shifted and he gave me a cold smile. Let me tell you something. I've got reliable information. The next time that supernatural thing comes back, poor trash will die first again. You know what that means. I can definitely help you. So, what do you think? I pretended to be surprised. President Kui, I heard all your money was handed out to employees as bonuses. Kui Bapi's face darkened immediately. My company is still running. For this whole year, I've only been paying employees 10% of their salary, and they still didn't dare quit. So yeah, I've got money now. I smiled. President Kui, how about we play a game? Starting right now, every time an image involving a woman appears in your mind, your little brother shrinks by 10%. How does that sound? Kui Bapi burst out laughing. Xu Qiang, I think you've been possessed by that creepy thing. Before he could finish, he let out a horrible scream. Then he passed out on the spot. Several medical staff rushed in and started emergency treatment immediately. Half a day later, he woke up again. Then he blinked twice and suddenly started screaming all over again. Seeing that, one of the doctors cried out in shock, "What's going on? Why is another piece missing?" A few minutes later, Kui Bapi woke up again. A few seconds after that, he screamed and blacked out again. After several rounds like that, he stayed unconscious for a full 3 days. When he finally woke up and looked down at himself, his heart rate went abnormal from the shock. From then on, he became a permanent hospital resident who could only move his eyes. After that, the eerie force never spoke to the whole world again. I put the power of the subconscious back onto the shelf. I didn't believe those first 2 global appearances of the bizarre game had happened because of me. But ever since I truly learned how to control my subconscious, that eerie presence had never appeared across the entire world again. It only appeared where I wanted it to. I got on a bus and headed to the property office to process a real estate transfer. That house in a prime golden location sold for a full 5 million yuan. The moment I got on the bus, an old man started snapping at me. "Young man, have you got no awareness at all? I'm standing here and you don't even know to give up your seat?" Looking at the fact that he had just gotten on at the previous stop, I let out a dark little laugh. "Grandpa, how about we play a game? If you keep throwing your weight around and bullying young people just because you're old, one of your organs will disappear immediately. Sound good?" The old man glared at me. "What, you trying to pull that creepy game nonsense on me? Let me tell you, I've lived long enough already. Do whatever you want." The second he finished speaking, he suddenly screamed in agony, "You jinxed me! You have to pay for this!" In the end, the old man was carried away in an ambulance. Even though he was already half dead, he still kept cursing the entire time. "Lift me carefully. If you damage me, you'll have to compensate me." Then in the end, he exploded on the spot. I only watched with a faint smile. Want to play a game? Or, better yet, want to help me design a new one?